in the state of Mississippi. Tom Luginbill on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Hey, Lugs, we talked about it during the offseason, and to date, Mike Elko is my SEC Coach of the Year. How about that performance by A&M against LSU Saturday night, my man?
Well, it's a real program, apparently. Listen, how many years have we been talking about what this program should be, right? When you consider the resources, the facilities, the endowment, the recruiting base, everything you can possibly think of to have the resources to be a championship level program, there is not one that this program is lacking. So we've all been scratching our heads for the last 15 to 20 years trying to figure out how is this program 8-4 or 7-5. And where I think Mike Elko deserves a ton of credit is I think you've got to go back to this past offseason. And when he started going through that roster, the number one thing he had to do, and it wasn't going to be easy decisions. He had to go to all of those guys that were all high profile, that everybody said had been bought, and, you know, what's their allegiance to the program, and basically say, hey, guys, we're going to do things a certain way here. And it's going to have nothing to do with name, image, and likeness. I don't care how much money you've made. I don't care how much you've been promised. But there's going to be a certain way we do things. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine, right? Go ahead and find another place to go to. But if you are going to be here, it's going to be about Texas A&M. It's going to be about the team. It's going to be about competing for championships. And we're going to hold you to a standard that is non-negotiable. And the players that chose to stay are why this team is in the position that they are in. Because now, all of a sudden, this group of players sees the bigger picture. And it's because of performance, and it's because they haven't wavered from the standards.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the difference between this Texas A&M and the one we've seen the last 15 to 20 years. I think the players actually care about what happens at Texas A&M.
Well, it was, I agree with you, and it was a hell of a win. And they figured it out. And Marcel Reed comes in and really works that LSU defense. And they turn, I mean, look, you know this. You played quarterback at a high level. You played Power 5 quarterback at Georgia Tech. You started. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. Nussmeier is still a very, very talented young man, and he's still going to have days where he drops 3 or 4 tutties on people. But some nights it doesn't go your way. And you know this, Luke, because you run the numbers on all these kids coming out of high school. A&M has real dudes on the defensive side of the football, and they played well late in the game.
Oh, yeah. Well, they play well late in the game, and again, they're playing collective team defense because it's not all about individuals. It's not all about, well, what do I get if I do this, right? Somehow Mike Elko has gotten rid of that me, I mentality, and the team has bought into the accolades and the attaboys and the exposure that comes through winning, right? At the end of the day, why do you think there's all of this attention on A&M right now? Not because of one person's individual effort or this person, because they're winning. That's where all the attention's coming from. Well, why are you winning? Because you're doing what you're coached to do and what you're asked to do, and you're not wavering from the standard. And I just think that they've got some ingredients, as you referenced, good football players, but not just good football players. Weed out the ones that were really good football players maybe, but didn't want to do it the way Mike Elko wants to do it. So if you remove that element, and now you've got really good football players that are going to do that, that's the secret sauce right there.
It is. Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by Spring Street Cigars in Starkville and Spring Street Cigars in Oxford. Both have smoking lounges, premium sticks, beautiful humidors, super places to hang out any day of the week, but definitely on game weekends. All right, so I got to go to Oklahoma and Ole Miss. 26-14, Pete Golding dominated the Oklahoma offense in the second half. I mean, this team looks like a solid to pretty good team. I don't think they're special. I mean, they may flip the switch this time of year. I kind of believe you are who you are at this point. But
Right.
again, Golding was a great hire by Lane, and this offense was ranked 108th in offensive scoring efficiency going into the game, and they're just not that good. Oklahoma's pretty good on the defensive side of the football. What was your takeaway from Sooners Rebs?
I thought it wasn't easy, but they found a way to win, which is a real positive, right? It was at times it was a bit sloppy. I thought early in the game they kind of had to adjust a little bit because Oklahoma did some nice things actually on offense that they probably weren't expecting. But then at the end of the day, they just kind of kept chipping away and outlasting Oklahoma. And there's a part of me that feels like Oklahoma's just right now they're gassed, they're outmanned, and they're a little bit shell shocked. And so what happens is self-doubt seems to creep in. If things don't go well, you have the, oh, here we go again mentality. And I think that is kind of a cloud that has settled over the Oklahoma program because it's been a tough, real tough last 3 to 4 weeks. And Ole Miss was able to take advantage of that. I think the game this week at Arkansas is going to be a barn burner.
You think Arkansas can play with them?
If the quarterback at Arkansas stays healthy, yes, because he is a problem. I mean, he's a handful in and outside of the pocket. I just think it's an intriguing matchup. Not one I'd take for granted, I'll tell you that much.
No, Ole Miss, Arkansas-Ole Miss series, Arkansas's 13-2 in Fayetteville. Ole Miss hasn't won up there since 2008. And as you know, Lugs, they have taken some damn good football teams up there with Freeze and Kiffin and walked out of that stadium with a loss. So things can get weird up there in Fayetteville.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough place to play. And right now, obviously they've battled some injuries, but they're hanging in there. I think Arkansas is a little bit like Vanderbilt in the sense that you really don't want to play them. You look at them and say, we should beat these guys, but I don't know if I really want to be playing these guys. That's how I look at Arkansas.
I think that's fair, actually. It's a good way to frame that up. Tom Luginbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. I was at the game on Saturday where Mississippi State was blown out. You're right on Talon Green. I mean, I'd watched him on TV, and I know MSU's not good on defense, but he is impressive, Lugs. I mean, he is really, really athletic. He's not like a super refined passer, but Bobby P. Petrino can say what you want about him, man. That guy can scheme some stuff up and get some people open.
Well, and he was able to coach Lamar Jackson into being a passer.
Good point.
Not just a runner, right? So he could do it with a variety of different styles and traits that the quarterback brings. And, well, I mean, listen, he's always been able to dial up scheme and get people open and things of that nature. But I think where he's really good is coaching the quarterback, like getting the best out of the quarterback. And that means if you got to utilize his legs, utilize his legs. If they're going to load the box, all right, let's throw it and find a way to get our best people on your worst people. I just think, I mean, that's a staple of Bobby Petrino.
Yeah. Okay, so Alabama takes care of business. Did that surprise you that they just they shut out and blew out Missouri over the weekend?
It didn't surprise me. And listen, in all fairness, and I don't want to take away from Alabama because there was significant improvement in that contest in all three phases of the game from what we saw, previously against South Carolina and Tennessee. But Missouri had no shot once Brady Cook was out of the game. And once that blood was in the water, Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator at Alabama, just pinned his ears back, and they came after Missouri and just made it miserable all day long. I mean, Alabama's forced 14 turnovers in the last 5 games, right? And now they got the run game going a little bit. Is it perfect? No. Is Jalen Milroe a little bit out of sync? I think so. I also think he's banged up because he doesn't look like he's got the burst and the explosiveness that we've become accustomed to seeing with his legs. But they've got a bye week, as LSU has a bye week, and then they're going to face off against each other in what is going to be a college football playoff elimination game. And that is what's starting to get really, really crazy is we're going to get into the first 2 to 3 weeks here And you're going to have Georgia, Tennessee as an elimination game. You could have Alabama and LSU as an elimination game. There are going to be some matchups that are going to change the landscape of the college football playoff.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now in Baton Rouge, Bama at LSU. Florida's numbers have gotten a lot better. As far as offense and defensive scoring efficiency numbers, they are better now. I mean, they're a massive underdog this week in the cocktail party. I went to that game a couple of years ago. That thing's wild. I was not expecting them to be able to pull that off, Lugs, on a neutral field, that kind of atmosphere and tailgating and so on. But Georgia's laying 16.5. Is that too many for you?
I think it's a little bit too many. And what they may be counting on is Georgia dominating up front and forcing DJ Lagway into some bad decisions. And if those bad decisions were to turn into points, or you have a pick six or something, that might be the difference between it being, 9 and 16 from a points perspective. I actually think Florida's playing pretty decent football. They took Tennessee to the wire on the road. They handled Kentucky. They look like they're doing better. Nobody's paying attention. I think that Billy Napier actually deserves a little credit. The schedule's obviously brutal. We've talked about that going back to last year. The question is, does Florida have enough in the tank to pull an upset versus Georgia and then be able to do it again the following week? I think they've got another big one the following week.
Okay. I'd love for that to be a good game. That'd be a ton of fun to go into the second half. We'll see if Florida can, like you said, we'll see if Lagway, that's a lot on Lagway as a young player to go against Kirby and that and Schumann or Shulman or whatever his name is, and that Georgia defense. It seems to, when they want to really play, they can hurt your feelings. Hey, so Free's got the big win against Kentucky, and now they host Diego Pavia this weekend at 11:45 game our time, Vanderbilt at Auburn. And I know Hugh's not going anywhere, but man, even with Vanderbilt's resurgence, and look, they played pretty damn good football against Texas, but Auburn can't afford to drop this one, Luke's, but they could.
No, they absolutely could. And to be honest with you, they're probably not the better team, Auburn. Now, they might have better athletes top to bottom, but they're not playing as a better team than Vanderbilt is right now. And that would be concerning to me if I was an Auburn fan. Auburn can't worry about Vanderbilt. Auburn has to capitalize and build upon the positives of last week.
Yes.
The fact that you got Jarquez Hunter the football a lot, and that you outgained Kentucky in the second and third quarter, 200 yards to 36. And that in the third quarter you had 14 plays, the first 14 plays on offense, Jarquez Hunter touched the ball 10 times. Those are building blocks. And they defensively, DJ Durkin did a really nice job affecting the quarterback, whoever it was for Kentucky, whether it was Wimsatt or Vandegrift. But you have to what we've seen to this point was the first time we saw Auburn find a way to actually win a game, not lose a game.
Yeah.
And you can't go backward. That's what you got to focus on this week.
All right, I want to go outside of the conference with you with Ohio State and Penn State. For our SEC listeners, the reason why we're doing this is one of your teams may face one of these teams in the college football playoff. So you have, I've been to this game too before, and it's wild. Ohio State at Penn State. Ohio State's laying 4. Penn State's 7-0, Lugs, as you know. Ohio State's 6-1. It's an early morning, 11 a.m. kick, and this has college football playoff implications too.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I'm going to ask you a question. What do you think about both of those teams in relationship to being compared to, let's just say, a Georgia or, I don't know,
Texas?
A&M right now?
Oh, A&M. I think they're a notch below. I don't think it's like a huge gap, but if all 4 are playing at the top of their game, Georgia for sure. A&M, I love what they're doing, but I also understand that Klein and Elko are trying to figure it out at quarterback with Wigman and Marcel, and they're doing a good job. But I'm going to lean Georgia for sure, and maybe a slight lean A&M because of their nasty defense on a neutral field against both of them, Luke. But you've mentioned the Penn State OC, how much you like them, and they haven't played offense since Joe Moorhead left. So this may be a year where Penn State does something.
Listen, this is a put up or shut up game for Penn State, in my opinion, because every gauge and every barometer is whether or not you can beat Ohio State. I don't think they have to win this game to get to the college football playoff. I think that they need to win this game for their own well-being. Mm-hmm. I think they need to win this game to get over a hump, to get over that final hurdle. And all of the pressure is on Ryan Day, right? Because they very publicly pushed all their chips to the table and said, we are going to put together a football team that is built to win a national championship. So now every game mounts with pressure because it's not just about beating Michigan. You have to do everything else right now, too, because that's how you put the roster together, and you spend a lot of money to do it. I cannot believe this game is a noon kick. I think it's the dumbest thing that you could possibly do from a television window perspective. How this game is not a primetime game, I have no idea. And so, listen, for what it's worth, I think Ohio State right now is struggling.
Yeah.
They can't run the football. They were one of 10 on third down last week against a Nebraska team that Indiana put 56 up against. They are a collection right now of really, really good football players and good athletes, some of them at elite level, but they're not playing elite level execution. And that, I think, is a bit concerning.
Yeah, no, this is Penn State's opportunity. I mean, good grief. They
Absolutely.
haven't beat anybody in like 8 years. So it's time. I mean, they got 9 automatic wins on their damn schedule every year. So, like you said, this is the time to go get it because Ohio State looks vulnerable. In fact, I'm trying to, unless maybe Penn State is that team, Luke's, and maybe Clemson is so off the grid like you've been talking about. They got embarrassed by Georgia, so everybody just forgot about them, and maybe they're going to come along, and maybe Miami. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a team that is an absolute legit national championship contender, can go through 3 college football playoff games outside of the SEC. Not that we necessarily have a super dominant team, but I still like Georgia, Texas, and A&M. What do you see?
Listen, I think that there are flaws across the board that put all of those teams in a position where if they don't play well, they are subject to lose. And in previous years, I don't know if I would have felt strongly in saying that. Meaning that prior to the transfer portal, prior to talent dispersal, prior to thinning out of your depth, particularly your 3s and 4s, if you're amongst the schools you just mentioned, not your 1s and 2s, but your 3s and 4s. Prior to that, those teams like an Alabama, like a Georgia, like a Clemson or whatever, were so dominant that they could even screw it up and still win the game against a good team. Now that's not the case anymore.
Right.
Do I think that a Georgia, a Clemson, an Alabama, potentially an Ohio State, maybe a Penn State, Texas A&M, are they capable and built for the long haul of what it's going to take to actually get through that gauntlet? Yes. But I think they're more susceptible and more vulnerable to go down to somebody that maybe you wouldn't say would normally beat them than we've ever seen before in college football.
Right. Okay. And Luke's, if I know he's not getting fired, but if Ryan Day goes to Penn State and they lose, and he's yet to really do anything close to what Urban or Tressel did, then the barks and the boos and the scuttlebutt. Don't you think it's only going to get louder and louder in Columbus?
Oh, there's no question about that. And then if that were to happen, now all of a sudden the Michigan game takes on a whole new light because that's been the bugaboo, right? That's who they have not been able to beat under his leadership. And it's one of the rivalry games in this world of college football where your job depends on it. It's not like Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State where you don't have to beat Oklahoma to keep your job, right? It's not like Auburn and Alabama, It matters at Ohio State whether you beat Michigan or not, regardless of how you do against the other 11 teams on your schedule. So the pressure on Ohio State, if they were to lose to Penn State, as it results to the rest. And remember, they got Indiana around the bend.
Ooh.
Let's not forget about that.
How about Kurt Signetti, 8-0, and beat Washington? You know, all that hoopla, they could have lost focus and kind of tripped over themselves, threw up on themselves, and they still won that damn game. By the way, I know we've only got a minute here. Matt Rule post-game after the Ohio State. I don't know if you saw the clip, Luke's, because I know you do your Sunday show, so maybe you looked at that. I thought it was – we're going to drop it in the next segment. I thought it was awesome what he talked about as far as that Nebraska football program and how they want to build it and sustain it.
Yeah, listen, I think the thing with Nebraska that we've got to acknowledge is you can play – you can be improved. You can develop and build and supplement your roster, add talent, and show progress, which is what I think Nebraska's doing, all right? But at the end of the day, if you're playing with a true freshman quarterback, no matter how talented he is, to me, you're going to have some potholes in the road. You're going to have some issues. You are going to have some moments where the ball gets turned over and you can't overcome it. So you're going to have to work through those growing pains. It doesn't mean that you're not improving, that you're not better, that you're not building for the long haul. I think we've seen all of that with this Nebraska program. But also Dylan Raiola has got these expectations on his shoulders that are so unreasonable. And you have to understand that there's going to be good with the bad. And that's part of the natural maturation process.
All right. Is there anything – trying to think who's going to be the hottest coach in the country in 4 weeks. Maybe Chadwell. I'm not sure. Florida may not open up. I think Beamer's going to hang on. Hell, I think Pittman's going to hang on. Stoops is going to be fine because they got $50 million on his contract. We may not have an opening in the SEC. All right, we'll hit that next week. Where are you this weekend?
I've got Pitt, undisputed Pitt at SMU.
Holy moly, that's a good game.
Yeah,
okay.
18 versus 20. And, I had that SMU versus Duke game on Saturday night. SMU turns the ball over 6 times on the road and wins.
Okay. Casey Woods may be the next head coach at Southern Miss. All right, thanks, Luke. See you, buddy.
You bet. See ya. We
are the Out of Bounds Show. We're powered by Superior Foundation. If you need French drains or foundation work, superior.ms.